But we want to welcome you to the NCCAA Annual Convention, and especially to our 50th year anniversary celebration. We also want to welcome you to the South, and you will notice your tea is sweet. So we just praise God that we're in the South this year. We have water for you Northerners, and we'll be praying for you later. We just want to let you know the NCCAA is here to serve, equip, and impact you, and you'll notice that throughout our theme throughout this weekend. We want to serve your institutions that you represent, your student athletes, your coaches from your institutions, and that's what we do year-round, and we just want to kind of bring that to a summary tonight. We have a wonderful meal planned for you. I'll give you some instructions about that in a few moments. I'm so excited about this. We've got a panel of our past executive directors tonight that represent 1968 to the present, and they don't all look like they used to back in the day, but we're just so excited to have the history and the knowledge that they bring. It's going to be a fun evening.
The NCCAA mission states, "We serve members by setting association standards, developing communications resources, providing regional and national competition, and partnering in outreach to our communities and the world." Bylaws, eligibility, statistics, and championships are all part of being an athletic association. Our services help propel intercollegiate athletics on and off campus. We intentionally place our student athletes and coaches in Christian service projects during championship events to answer the question, what would Christ do in these communities?
These individuals have, over a period of years, exhibited a dedication and special service to the association, and their efforts have had a significant contribution to the welfare of the NCCA. The following are Meritorious Service Award recipients for the 2017-2018 academic year. And I'll read the names. Unfortunately, only one is actually here tonight, but just so you know who are the recipients for this year. For Division I Mid-East Region Coordinator from 2015 to 2018 from Campbellsville University is Jim Hardy. D2 Men's Basketball National Chair from 2015 to 2018 from Southwestern Christian University is John Mack. I know John is here. Come on up, John Mack. And Ben is going to come up and give you your official award. Right there on top. Division I Women's Basketball National Chair from 15 to 18 from Houghton College is Alicia Mooker. Indoor Track and Field National Chair from 16 to 18 from Dallas Baptist University is Jacob Phillips. And D1 North Central Region Coordinator from 15 to 18 from Trinity Christian College is Bill Scapel. Let's give all of those folks a hand. We would also like to recognize and let you hear from another group of individuals that have served the NCCA for the first 50 years. Their leadership and their service really can't be understated at this point. And to start our celebration of the past 50 years of ministry, we wanted to have each executive director, and there's only been 4 of them, to come back and share with us tonight. And so I guess it only makes sense to start from the beginning, and that is Mr. E.C. Haskell. E.C. was one of the founders of the NCCA and served as its first executive director from 1970 to 1988. E.C. received his academic training at Tennessee Temple University and Temple Baptist Theological Seminary. He was awarded the Honorary Doctorate of Humanities degree by Oklahoma Baptist University in 1990. EC currently serves local churches and donors with the Association of Baptists for World Evangelism, who serves more than 1,100 missionaries in 75 countries. He and his wife, Carolyn, reside in Whispering Pines, North Carolina, where they're actively involved in their church and have 2 married sons. Please welcome the NCCAA's first executive director and also the initial inductee into the NCCAA Hall of Fame in 1991, E.C. Haskell. Next up is Dr. Barry May. He served as executive director from 1988 to 97, when the national office was actually headquartered in Marion, Indiana. Following his service to the NCCAA, he was the professor and chair for the Department of Health, Physical Education, Recreation, and Athletics at Asbury College before retiring in 2007. Prior to the NCCAA, Dr. May was at Indiana Wesleyan, where he had several different positions and served in various coaching and teaching roles at Olivet Nazarene University beginning in 1967. Dr. May and his wife, Fran, will celebrate 51 years of marriage next month. And currently live in Nicholasville, Kentucky. He's also a member of the NCCAA Hall of Fame from the class of 1998. Please welcome Dr. Barry May. Rob Miller graduated from Spring Arbor University before earning his master's degree in sports administration from Michigan State in 1994. During his career, Miller has worked as assistant athletic director, men's basketball coach, and has been commissioner of 2 different athletic conferences. He became director of advancement at the NCCAA in 1995 and then served as executive director from 97 to 99. Since 2008, Rob has been a partner with Proactive Coaching. He speaks all over the world on leadership, intentional coaching, and developing a positive team and/or school culture. He now lives with his wife, Susan, in Liberty, Missouri, and they have 1 daughter, Kendall, who's a student at Biola University. Please welcome the 3rd executive director of the NCCAA, Rob Miller. And finally, we have Dan Wood, who has served as executive director since January of 2000. With over 30 years in higher education, he has been a coach, a faculty member, an athletic administrator at Limestone College, Oklahoma Wesleyan, and Indiana Wesleyan University. A 1982 graduate of Southern Wesleyan University, he was a 4-year letterman in both golf and soccer. Dan and his wife, Kelly, of 32 years, live in central South Carolina, about 32 minutes from here. And they have 1 married daughter, Courtney, and 1 soon-to-be married son, Grant. So please welcome the current executive director and the 4th one, Dan Wood. So we appreciate all 4 of you guys being here, making the time and the effort to come back for this special week that we're starting. And so what we're going to do is we have a few questions specifically for each one of you, and then kind of as a group as well. So we will start with E.C. Haskell. Why don't you just tell us from the beginning your thoughts and take us back to 1968. What was your vision of what the NCCAA might become?
We had a meeting. Norm Wilhelmy says there were 8 coaches there. I don't know. I thought there were 12 or 13. But we had been for over a year talking about our desire to see something develop for the Christian college where they could compete in various sports. We could have an All-American service. We could have all types of opportunities for them, including mission trips and so forth. And so we talked and we prayed, and then they gave me an envelope with the names of 13 colleges written in pencil on the back and said, "Here's your assignment, take it and run with it." So I really wasn't sure, actually, at that time, how many related colleges, Christian colleges there were. throughout the United States, but I got a listing of, I think, some 700 maybe that were church-related colleges, and I began to write letters. I began to visit a lot of colleges and talk to them about our vision and to see what we could do. And I had no idea what the ceiling was, but we started out with some big dreams, and I'm going to tell you, this organization has been built on volunteer leadership. On the district level, region level, the various coaches that head up the sport teams and the sport organizations, baseball, basketball, I guess there is a football, but it's still on the
Victory Bowl.
Victory Bowl, yeah. So it's the volunteer that on all the different levels of the organization that have built this organization through the years. I can't believe it has been 50 years. I told somebody earlier today, I'm not old enough to have been here 50 years ago, so. But yeah, it's been great to see it happen and watch it happen through the leadership of each of these guys who followed. And so we've kept it in our prayers. We've tried to give as we've had opportunity. And of course, I read everything that comes from the office, so I'm thankful for that. And follow the various sports and who the winners are, who the participants are at the national tournaments. And so it's been great to watch the organization grow and develop, and we're thrilled where it is today, and we're thankful for the office here in Greenville.
Thanks. So, Dr. May, 1989, I think you were Dean of Student Development at Indiana Wesleyan. Is that right? So, how did the opportunity to lead the NCCAA come to you, and what were your thoughts and fears or excitement about that opportunity?
Well, first of all, let me just share what I know to be the importance of Christian higher education. And all the schools that I attended, Spring Arbor, of course, or where I worked, they've all been affiliated with the NCCAA. I told our two children, I'm like Henry Ford, you can have any color of Model T you want as long as it's black. And I said to our children, you can go to any college that you wish to go to as long as it's Christian. And so they did, and we're grateful for that. But anyway, I graduated from Spring Arbor, and I wanted to coach cross-country and track, so I went right on with my master's, and my first job was at Olivet Nazarene, and then from there to Indiana Wesleyan, where it was cross-country track and athletic director. I say all that. I had a couple friends, one on the physics professor and one a sociology prof, and he said, you need to go after your doctorate. I said, you kidding me? I'm an athletic director, I'm coaching, that's really all I want to do. But some way I took that nudge, and we went after the doctorate, and my wife joined me with our 2-year-old, and we went off for a couple years. I say all that to say, I'm sure I would never have probably been maybe considered for the position of executive director or what followed at Asbury College as I went there for a department chair. So I'm grateful for these opportunities, which I know were a nudge from the Lord in each case. During my time of the 8 years there in Marion, Indiana, they actually hired the director of development, Sam Sample, before actually that I was hired. And then as I was Dean of Student Development, it was under new president, and after 5 years, there was a change of presidency, and 2 or 3 of us, there was a change made on the president's cabinet. So about that time, my successor, Dr. Mike Fratsky, who was the athletic director for many years, he, of course, was aware of that. I think he was president of the association then. He, along with John Wheeler and Dr. Don Callan of Cedarville, they interviewed me nearby. It wasn't in Trump Tower, but it was in John Wheeler's beautiful motorhome. And after that opportunity to meet with them, it wasn't too much later that they extended the offer for me to join them. And with me, wanting to stay in Marion because my wife was a longtime teacher and our children were still in high school, middle school. We thought that was just a great opportunity. It was a wonderful 8 years. I can't thank enough Kelly Wood. She was one of our secretaries for the 4 out of the 9 years, and she just did a great job. She kept me on target, and she just was everything to that office. And our first person who was in development did a nice job, but we had actually 2 before this young man to my right. And as it says there in the, I think his introduction, he really set a great tone and groundwork for establishing what development is all about today. He did a great job. So it was just a privilege to be there in Marion, Indiana. It actually used to be the Wesleyan headquarters. When they moved into Annapolis, it became a bank corporation. And those 2 guys, they were great Notre Dame Purdue fans. And we'd go down there. I'd have to take my coffee down there and listen to their, and I was a big Michigan fan. He's a Michigan State fan. So we always had our ins and outs with those guys, but we had free office, and they just were really behind us for the NCCAA. So I didn't have any fears, but I did see great opportunities. We certainly needed that development person, and it was great to have a full-time person during my time there. The office help that Kelly and some other administrative assistants were. And the thing that I really tried to really begin to even go in greater depth was the regional and district meetings, making contact with a lot of college presidents from out on the West Coast to the East Coast, regional meetings, being there, and just follow up with that. And this fellow deserves a lot. I remember when I first met EC, the word was, he was always full-time in admissions at Tennessee Temple, and it started, his work with this started out of a shoebox. And I'm sure that shoebox grew after all the years that he was executive director. So, and I appreciate all that Dan and Kelly and the rest of the staff have done now to make it the great organization, and only God's tremendous blessing has allowed that.
Thank you. So, Rob, as Dr. May just said, you were originally hired at the NCCAA to do my job, right? To do development. But as executive director, you brought, I think, partnerships, especially business partnerships, to kind of a new level, to something that the association had really never had up to that point. How did you start developing those kind of from scratch?
Well, I think there was a couple of things that instigated that. First of all, when I found out, and Barry came and interviewed me, I found out development was not just about the pro-am. That was important, obviously, right? It still is. But saying that his idea of development was broader based, helping, he just talked about it, get out, helping membership, that's development, helping all these other areas. So that kind of gave me a vision to go with his vision allowed me to kind of branch into that. And then I think second with that is I just got done serving an internship up at Michigan State where that was kind of something I had been doing. And I think that kind of one led to the other, and that kind of kicked that off of how to get those 2 all together. So it was kind of more of a broad base approach to development than had been done before.
That's great. All right, so Dan, you became executive director in January of 2000. Tell us how you got to that point.
If any of you ever saw the movie The Jerk with Steve Martin, I know you don't go to movies, you Christian college people, I understand it. I was a heathen and did. It starts with I was born, and then you get the whole thing. I won't go that far back, but I have to say, very candidly, I think God started preparing me for this job through Dr. Keith Connor at Central Wesleyan College, my coach. We were a duly affiliated institution with the NAI and NCCAA, and yet to Keith Connor, NCCAA ruled. It was who Central Wesleyan College, now Southern Wesleyan College, was. NAI gave us some form, some regular season, but NCCAA was who that institution was, and he pounded us, and we hated it. We were ranked as high as number 3 in the country in soccer my sophomore year, and we did not play in NAI playoffs. Yeah, for those of you competitive dual affiliates, our team was not a bunch of happy campers. So we got a wonderful trip to Messiah College the week after Thanksgiving. It was 30 degrees to play in NCCAA Nationals, and then got beat by Houghton, which didn't make it any better. But that man started training me for what I think ended up today. I left there, went to Limestone College, started the men's soccer program, headed off to Oklahoma Wesleyan University, at that time Bartlesville Wesleyan College. And as an AD and a soccer and golf coach and RD and Dean of Men and all these things you do to pay the bills, I literally fell in love with the NCCAA and everything it stood for. Barry May was executive director. We got to host national championships. We got to compete for national championships. I got to serve in some of those volunteer roles. And I say all that the journey included all of that. And I think that it started a well-roundedness in me about what NCCAA was, what it wasn't. I ended up at Indiana Wesleyan after that for 4 years where Kelly served. Just those of you who don't know, she probably ought to be up here. She's been with the NCCAA 26 years, the longest term employee in the history of the association. But even at Indiana Wesleyan, Mike Fratsky, again, allowed me to serve in volunteer roles as national soccer chair, men's golf chair, eventually vice president for the board for 1 year, and then went on the board as an at-large board member when we went into private business and left IW in '96. And even then, in a failed golf course venture, tried to get a golf course built back in where we loved in Bartlesville. It didn't happen. I got hired by a board member, David Spillman, with Data Fund Links, and the job was to raise money. I didn't want to raise money, never knew about raising money, found out that it's critical mass. Well, guess what was very critical in January of 2000 when I started this job? We did not have Stuart or a full-time development person. We had one employee, and she sits right there. And I was the second one. I did not hire my wife. She did not hire me, so it wasn't nepotism. But I say that because the whole journey prepared me. And my guess is some of you are nodding. It's why you're in the job you're in now. You don't look back and say it just happened. There was a journey that got you to where you're there. And I think for whatever reason, God just poured me. And I never framed it this way until Jerry Malone said this, but then Ben Bellman reiterated it when he was hired. He said, I feel like everything I've done the last 20, 30 years of my life prepared me for this job, has led to this. I never planned to be executive director. First time they asked, I said no. And Ralph Swearingen, who was a mentor of mine at Atlanta Christian College, he asked for Kelly and I to do a season of prayer. Will you pray for 48 hours? Because I think God would have you do this. 6 hours in, we stopped looking at each other because we knew what was coming. And we didn't know how it would happen, but God's got a warped sense of humor. So it just feels, there's not been a day that I've walked into 302 West Washington Street that I didn't love my job. May not have loved the task that day, that week, that month, but I love my job. I love who we get to serve, and I love the master we get to call Lord and Savior that drives it all. So.
All right, so this next question is actually for all four of you, and we'll let you all take a stab at it. And we'll start with EC. But you've all led this association, and you all know the challenges it presents as kind of a two-pronged ministry. There's the sports side, and there's the ministry side. How did you balance those two areas while you were executive director?
Well, we felt like the ministry side is so important, and we never wanted, in a sense, the athletic tail to wag the dog, so to speak. Mm-hmm. And so one of the things that I did is I brought in a guy by the name of Wendell Kempton, who served as our chaplain, and he would speak at the national meetings, and he would go to the various games and at the various institutions and pray and encourage the players and so forth. But we tried to keep that focus on what is the ministry of and the mission of the college. And we didn't want the athletic program to go somewhere else. We wanted it to be in focus with the mission of the college. And so we worked very hard to try to keep those two areas focused together and bring them together. There are so many facets of that, and how you do ministry, how you do your sports, and so I remember one time we were having, I won't tell you the sport, but we had a national tournament, and we got, I will say this, we got a bunch of red cards during the tournament, so you may figure it out. So something like 9 red cards. And so I called the coaches together after that tournament, and I said, this isn't going to happen again. we got to figure out a way to fix this, or we won't field soccer tournaments anymore. Because we had to apologize to the referees. And so we just wanted the sport of soccer to be a testimony. We wanted the sport of basketball to be a testimony. And sometimes the tempers get involved, but we wanted the people that came, we wanted them to see something different about the way we went about our games and our tournaments. We wanted the referees to see something different. And so I think that was the way we tried to focus it together and keep that in front of us all the time. So,
All right. Dr. May?
I think he said it very well in terms of setting the foundation in all the years that he was chair, our executive director, and setting the tone. And obviously, every coach at every institution and the sports chairs are critical, and that continued during my leadership. And I know when we looked at host institutions, as if we had more than one school saying, hey, I'd like to apply to host this particular sport, we tried to really keep that at the forefront, that they had responsibilities not just for the tournament, but also honoring and the Lord Jesus Christ and being a witness for the student athletes in the community.
I think one of the things I had to learn real quick was the difference between Division I and Division II at that time. And there was a difference in that, because a lot of the Division I's were dual members, the D2s were not. And one of the first things Barry did, I started in the fall, and he sent me to a couple regional meetings, okay? And I think there'll be about a third of you that will understand this. One of the first regional meetings I went to was down in Oklahoma, and Willie Holly and Kirk Hansen were running that meeting. So, anybody else want to finish this discussion? And it was great, but they basically told me, this is our national championship, okay? And that's the focus, is the national championship in this. And so it really kind of gave me perspective, too, to how to balance those two. Because it wasn't, we needed to be about ministry. I love what you just said. We needed to be, as you'll hear me say tomorrow, we need to be different, noticeable, and appealing. Because there's a lot of sports out there right now that are different, noticeable, and unappealing. And if we're not different, noticeable, and appealing, who will be? And when we're just the same as everybody else, we haven't made our statement for what we are, and that's the biblical interpretation of athletics. Because so many times we're the only Bible that other people are ever going to read is in the athletics. And we have to be that. And so, but it also gave me this focus, we better do this in a first-class fashion of the athletic component too. Because that was a desire. And so, and we were talking down here about some of the stories as this first got going, that some of us were there, 3 o'clock in the morning baseball games. Okay, that happened. Okay, but it was a great athletic experience, but if the ministry wasn't behind it, and some of you have been in a baseball situation, Tom Roy being there for years as the chaplain, those were the things that led people, not just to athletics, but led them to the Lord, which was the most important.
EC, if it makes you feel better, that sport you won't mention that I played and coached, we probably topped whatever you had that day. We finished the national championship quarterfinal a few years ago, 8-on-7. And the NCAA rule says they have to leave the pitch, but they can't stay there, but they can't go to their bus unless a coach goes with them. Well, the coaches didn't want to not see the rest of the game, so they have what was at that time called Dan's Romper Room. It was a tent where they had to come sit. And I've got more players with me than they have on their benches. It was embarrassing, but I think we may have topped that. For me, two things stick out, and they were related to my first year and this past year. Upon assuming this job in late January of 2000, and then about the first 90 days, I had two meetings. One was with a guy by the name of Steve Baker, who at that time was director of NAI. The other was with a gentleman named Cedric Dempsey, who was that time president of the NCAA. In both of those meetings, not sarcastically or speaking down, both made it clear that they felt sorry for me, because we had to bear that cross, and we had the Christ thing that was going to hinder us from growing in the culture of sport. Let that resonate a little bit. We had to bear the cross, and that was going to hinder us from flourishing and growing, as both of them saw sport growing and rapidly becoming one of the top three, basically, conduits in our culture now, thanks to ESPN and others. Fast forward to this past February and March. February with Mark Emmert, the now president of the NCAA, and Jim Carr, who's a dear friend, Rob and I both at the NAI. Both spoke very articulately about the fact that they struggle right now in their jobs, and this is not condescending to them at all, it's just the reality, finding clarity with what it is they're supposed to do and how they're supposed to lead. Mark Emmert serves an association of the most self-centered me culture probably in the history of sport in the NCAA. If you remember, I'm not knocking the organization, just where he's struggling right now to lead you, what's he supposed to do and what's priority one? Because he gets different priorities every day, he feels like, from attorneys and media and the outside. Jim Carr struggles with a change in NAI, drastically different. And both of them talked about the fact, as I shared, what drives us. And I loved it, EC. It's the same thing you said 50 years ago. Mission will drive the NCCAA. They now think it's the best brand thing we got going because we have clarity. Does it stunt our growth? It may. It has, to be very candid. There's things we say no to. But in this culture of so much meism, it's great to know that we're heism. That's it. That will lead us. If it costs us in the marketplace, that's okay. Souls are worth it. And in this day when, man, everybody can be a hero and an icon in one tweet, text, picture, you gotta fight. You've gotta fight that he will always be greater than me. With you, with me, and with our student athletes. But I mentioned Rob, I said it's exactly the same thing. Our staff hears it. Mission drives us. Does it fit the mission? If so, we'll attack it. And if not, we won't.
And if I can just add, I think one of the things that would be hopefully broad-based between all of us up here is we're 2 or 3 steps removed. You're on the ground level. And so our job is to kind of equip you to do what you want. And I'll just share a story with this. And it happened a couple months ago. And Bruce, I wish I remembered where I was at. I'm getting to the age I can't remember where I was at, okay? I was at doing a presentation, and I always ask this question. Tell me who the best coach you ever had was. And after the presentation, a young lady comes up, and she looks at me and says, I don't know if you've ever heard of Bruce Dixon, a Kentucky Christian. I said, oh, yeah, I've heard of him, okay? Tell me the story. And she told me how he impacted her life through sports, but through her faith. That's where the ministry lies, right there.
All right, so final question. We're going to start with Dan and come back this way this time. So you guys know we have ADs in the room. We've got coaches, and or both, AD and coach at the same time. So you know their role. You know what they do day in and day out. What is your advice to them in that role?
Those of you who know, probably all of us have the ability to get wordy, so I typed it because I want to sum this up. And I know you say, of course, you're going to use the Bibles, Christian College Athletic Association, but it's still our textbook. When we talk about our handbook, our Bible's our handbook. We have other things for sports, and as we learned today, we'll improve them and work on them a lot. There's nothing wrong with the Bible. Not a thing. It doesn't change. It's exactly the same. And it's real simple in Matthew 6:33, but seek ye first the kingdom of God. Coach, player, AD, compliance, president, executive director, staff, volunteer. Seek ye first the kingdom of God, and then all these things will be added unto you. Problem is, I want us to caution us. Those things are not 182 members. We may want that at the national office. That'd be great. It may not be $1 million donor. That's a thing. That's not listed in that verse. You know, do you remember what it lists in there? Food, drink, and clothing. If you seek God first, Matthew 6:33 says those things will be added unto you. So my challenge to you and to me, is that enough? If that's all we get, is that enough? Or do we have to have Coach of the Years and national banners and career paths and egos flying out of control? Let that be enough. Because Bruce Dixon, that legacy with that young lady is the exact same thing. Keith Connor lives 3 doors up from me. I get to see the most impactful man in my life since my dad passed in '97. My coach that changed my life and wanted me, you've heard me say this before, to be a better husband and a father and an executive director. If that's what happened someday, then he needed a goalkeeper. Goalkeeper was secondary. Changing a young man's life for Christ was primary. That's, coaches, go seek first the kingdom of God and get your kids to do that. If you fail at everything else, personally, I'm okay with that.
And I just follow up with that is, yeah, we have to be intentional, okay? Because if we're not intentional, we live in a society where, you know, we have the word impact up here, because one of my sayings is we've gotten really good at T-shirt slogans, right? Everybody has a T-shirt with a slogan on the back. What's that look like? Because if we're not on the same page and put action statements to it, all we have is slogans and words. And we need to put action to everything we're doing. And in this case, our action is based biblically. And how are we going to make that come alive? And so be intentional about everything you do. And an example is that I was at a Christian college working not too long ago, and we're going through what they wanted their words to stand for and dive a lot deeper. And somebody said family, and they're like, yeah, family, that's it. And then one of our coaches, they're reminded, do you realize that 45% of our kids at this school come from broken homes? What's their definition of family? Is it good or is it bad? We need to be intentional to make sure we make it come alive.
Dr. May, what's your advice?
Well, it's a very important balance in terms of coaching and athletic director and your role in each situation. When I started track and cross country at Olivet, I was just thankful to be there as a coach. And obviously after 3 years, I had the opportunity to go to Indiana Wesleyan. All that said is that then I began not just representing my own sports, but obviously as athletic director, trying to allow the coaches to do the very best job they could do in a Christ-centered college. And I'll give you this one example. We had poor facilities. In fact, at 2 schools, when I was there, we had no athletic scholarships. Olivet Nazarene and then Indiana Wesleyan. It's a far cry from that now. And I remember it wasn't the president that hired me, but the one before that. I was there, I reported to the academic dean, but I went to the president. He wanted me to come in and see him about some of the needs of the overall athletic program. And I did, and he listened, and he wore glasses, and all of a sudden, I kind of probably was taken back. He whipped off those glasses, threw them on the desk, and says, "May, you're always asking for the moon." So I went home that night at dinner. I said, "Fran, I'm not sure I'm going to have a job tomorrow." So I go to the 8 o'clock class in the science building, since we didn't have the new Physical Education Center then. And who was standing there in the hallway at 10 minutes to 8? I got there at 5:02. It was this president, and he said, "Barry, I wouldn't want you any other way. Thanks for all you're doing, you and the coaching staff, and we need to make Marion College, now Indiana Wesleyan, the best it can be."
I like what Rob said about being intentional, but I was thinking also another word that's important, and that is don't compromise. Don't compromise your own testimony or the testimony of your school. That's so important. And if that's gone, then you don't have anything anyhow. So I would just say guard yourself, guard your life, guard your testimony, and try to let Christ shine through in all that you do in athletics and in your administration and so forth. So those are 2 important words, compromise and being intentional. I would encourage you with both of them.
All right. So we have time for maybe one question from the floor. Somebody's already been thinking about it and would love to fire one at the group or a specific person. Here's your shot. Yes, sir.
Sam Woolwhite. Yep.
What a great job Sam did in the NCCAA. So we owe you a great debt of gratitude. Thank you, TC.
Can I just add? I appreciate you making that remark. I just think he did an excellent job, just a tremendous job during that time, especially when he's heading up admissions. And any other administrator or coach, anyone in this room affiliated with a college, so much of it's enrollment driven. And for him to take the time that he did, the number of years to bring this association to what it was and what it is today, and all that you had to do as director of admissions, this man need to give him a hand.
Well, we are going to give you a hand, but we also wanted to give all of you a little gift, so to speak. And we wanted you to be able to experience, you know what the NCCAA was like when you led it, and probably even before that, but don't know if you've been back to many championships since then. And so we would like you to select any one championship in the 18-19 academic year that you and your wife can travel to and be our guest for the week or for however long, whatever championship it is. Pick your best sport or maybe the location you want to be in. And we will love to host you in that way. Dan, that is a terrible gift for you.
I'm going to the Masters.
The Masters College? No. Oh, but really, we do thank you for all of your service and look forward to seeing you at a championship this year. And then you can kind of see how it has changed, and hopefully for the good. So let's give them a hand real quick.